Hi, it's Ryan Frank, and welcome to the YouTube version of my podcast. I'm so glad that you've tuned in. I am a pastor, an entrepreneur. I love talking about faith, family, and anything to do with leadership and productivity. So every week in my podcast, I talk to you about hacks that'll help you be a better leader. I share with you things that God is teaching me right now. I talked about what's going on in our family and in our businesses. I share with you resources and products and ideas you absolutely need to know about. And then I wrap up every week by talking about a quote. I'm a bit of a quote nerd, and so I love sharing good quotes with you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, let's start today's episode. Hey, podcast listeners, it's Ryan Frank, and welcome to episode number 481 of the Ryan Frank podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Whether you are listening today to the audio version or on YouTube, watching the YouTube version, I want to thank you for your time. And most of all, thank you for your attention. You know, I've taken a bit of a hiatus the last 2 or 3 weeks from the podcast because of Christmas break and travel plans with my family. But we're into the month of January and I'm back, and I'm so glad to be here spending time with you. Thank you. It's a new year. If you're like me, if you're like most of the world, you set some New Year resolutions, some big goals. That's one thing I love about the new year, right? I love Christmas, but I just love it's like a reset. It's almost like here we are, we can start fresh with some new ideas, some new goals, some new dreams. And I hope that as you go into 2022, that you have some really big dreams and ambitions for this year. But here's what I don't want for you. I don't want you to live up there in the clouds of those high goals, those huge ambitions, those big dreams. Because if you stay up there, you won't get anything done, right? And this is why I found that most people never achieve all of their goals for the year, and why a lot of people don't achieve a majority of their goals, because those goals are so big and so lofty and so ambitious that they are possible, but they're only possible if they're broken down into smaller action steps. And so maybe you've got some big dreams and goals for this year. Maybe you want to lose 40 pounds. Maybe you want to put $10,000 in your savings account by the end of the year. Maybe you want to take a vacation. Maybe you want to write a book or start a podcast. Maybe there's something you're wanting to do. That's great. Here's what you need to do now. You need to break that into smaller steps. In other words, what are a few things I can do in January to make that happen? What are a few things I can do in February to make that happen? To push that project forward, to make it more of a reality in my life. What can you do, friends? What can you start doing even this week to make some of those goals a reality? Hey, hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful new year. I can't wait to take this journey with you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. By the way, I asked on Facebook, let me pull it up on my screen. I asked on Facebook, what action items can you take this week? I was talking about this very thing for you to reach your goals. That's some great feedback. Sherry said that she has decided to increase the number of steps that she takes every day from X amount to X amount. I said, that's super practical, which is great. Monica said, I'm sending a portion of my new book to the publisher. I love it. Sometimes we wait till we get something all done. We just need to start pushing out what we've got, right? Robert said, I'm going to reach out to one family a week and pray for them specifically. I love that. Because Robert could have had the goal this year. I'm going to pray for all my families in my church this year. Well, that's a lofty goal, but is that going to happen? Here's what Robert's going to do to make sure that happens. He's going to identify one family member each week, and he's going to pray specifically for them. Stacy says, I'm focusing on adding 1 bottle of water to my sugar drinks each day. And then she said, that's one more than I was drinking. I love it. So, hey, for every 20-ounce soda that you drink, add a bottle of water into the mix. I think you get the point. I think you get the idea. It's more important that you have action steps that are really doable. than it is just have a bunch of lofty, great ideas going into 2022. Now, new format for the podcast that we started in December. If you listen to the podcast, you listen to the last several issues, you know we have a new format where I do some teaching. I share a leadership tip or a leadership hack. I talk about what's something that God's teaching me right now. I share with you what's going on in our world these days. I talk to you about a cool resource that you need to know about, and then a quote of the week. So before we jump into segment number 1, let me set it up for you. So one of the great things I get to do is work with children's ministry leaders. We have an awesome school of ministry called Kidmin Academy, where we have awarded over 6,000 diplomas over the last 5 years to children's pastors. It's an awesome program. Maybe you're listening to the podcast and you're a current student or an alumni of Kidmin Academy. I'd love to hear from you. If you're an alumni, send me a text, 765-441-4598. We also have a second year program for Kidmin Academy called Kidmin Academy Excel. And I'm going to let you listen in on my teaching just from the other day in a Kidmin Excel class. I talked to these students about 5 questions they need to be asking. Let me tell you something. If you want to be a better leader, you need to learn to ask better questions, right? And if you need to find better answers, you better learn to ask better questions. Oh, one of the greatest tips that you and I can learn in our journey of life is to never stop growing curious, right? I want to grow wise as I grow older, but I also want to grow more and more curious. And I want that for you. So I'm going to replay for this section only, then I'm going to come back to you and share some more. I'm going to replay 5 questions you need to be asking. Are you ready? Get your pen, get a piece of paper. We're going to get really, really practical. And then after I share these 5 leadership hacks, I'm going to come back and talk to you about what God's teaching me right now. Knowing the right questions is actually better than having all of the right answers. The quicker you can learn to grow your skill at asking questions, I promise you, you're going to be 2 or 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Because listen, everybody thinks they know the answers to everything, right? But very few actually know the right questions to ask at the right time. It's been said that the fastest way to change the answers you receive, both from yourself and from others, is to change the questions you ask. If you find yourself stuck, if you find yourself like, man, I just keep hitting these same brick walls, these same giant obstacles, these hurdles, perhaps you need to rethink the questions that you're asking. I'll talk to you more about that when we do our live class. The importance of asking the right questions. But sometimes you do just simply need to change the questions that you ask. I believe it was John Maxwell that I heard say, the power of the answers you receive is directly proportionate to the power of the questions you ask. That's why John Maxwell wrote the book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. If you want good answers, ask good questions. If you want mediocre answers, ask mediocre questions. But if you want great answers, you need to ask great questions. So I'm going to share with you today 5 questions that you need to be asking right now. Okay, those were our introductory remarks. Let's move to point number 1. How is my walk with the Lord? How is my walk with the Lord? Don't get your joy from your job. Okay? Your J-O-Y should not come from your J-O-B. Your joy should come from the Lord, right? Too many of us in ministry find our joy, our fulfillment in our 9-to-5 ministry that God's called us to. Our ministry to kids and families, our ministry in the church, our ministries into our community. And listen, those do bring you joy, but that is not the source of your joy, right? The source of your joy is the Lord. So here's a question, Kidmin Academy Excel. Am I closer to the Lord this week than I was last week? Am I closer to the Lord this week than I was last week? See, none of us have arrived, but we all should be growing. And I hope that you're growing. If you deepen your walk with the Lord, I promise you that God will broaden your influence. He'll bless that. How do I know? James 4:10 says, humble yourself before the Lord, and He'll lift you up. Right? Humble yourselves. One of the most humble acts you can take is to ask questions, to refuse to be the know-it-all. So be willing to ask questions, not only of yourself, not only of others, but before the Lord. Make sure your personal walk with the Lord is where it needs to be. Make sure that every day you are humbling yourself before Him. And here's what will happen. As your personal walk with the Lord grows, as your prayer life grows, as the time you spend in God's Word grows, listen, your influence will grow. It will catapult you into the destiny that God has for you. Your prayer life, listen, determines more of your future and your destiny, even more than your vision. Now, we talk a lot about vision in Kidmin Academy Excel. But you know what? There's something more important than vision that's going to catapult you into your future. It's your prayer life that's going to catapult you into your future. So friends, listen. What's your prayer list look like? There's something much more important, okay? Something much more important than how many friends you have on Facebook, and it's how many friends are on your heart. Something much more important than all, than all the glitter and all of the shine and all the ways and the models and the methods and all the ways we do stuff. It's our personal walk with the Lord. You've got to determine that, you know what, I'm going to take my personal walk with the Lord seriously. Even if it's just carving out 5 minutes a day to spend time with the Lord, I'm going to do that. Why? Because it's important. So here's question number 1 for you, Kidmin Academy Excel. How's my walk with the Lord? I hope that your walk with the Lord is improving. I hope that you're closer to the Lord today than you were last week. That you're closer this week than you were last month. That you're closer to the Lord this month than you were last year, and you get my point. Let's go to number 2. Second question. Remember, good leaders ask great questions. How is my volunteer strategy? Let's talk about your volunteer strategy. Because what it takes to get people is what it takes to keep people. And so you've got to make sure you've got a right volunteer strategy in place. If you beg people to come and serve with you, listen, they're going to beg out. I promise you that. But if you lead with vision, you always have to lead with vision. And you always have to explain the why behind the what. When you explain the why you need to be on this team, let me tell you what, people will stick. People will stick. Why? Because they want to be a part of something significant. I've found that most leaders in the church don't have recruiting problems, they have retention problems. And you know what? You've got to do what it takes. Anybody can get some people anybody can recruit a leader. I mean, you just beg long enough, you guilt trip people long enough, you can get people to sign up on a clipboard. Can you keep them? How do you keep them? You keep them with vision. You keep them with vision. You keep them by doing things with excellence. You keep them by loving them. This is why I wrote the book, The Volunteer Code. The Volunteer Code, I shared 10 laws for recruiting and retaining volunteers, because recruiting's less than half the battle. Listen, if some of you could just learn to close that back door, you wouldn't have such a recruiting problem. But you've got to take care of those volunteers. You've got to constantly keep the vision in front of them. You need to make sure that they're not burning out, that they have what they need. You know, when a volunteer comes to you and says, I feel like I'm burning out, here's more than likely what they're saying to you. They're saying there's a need in my life that's not being met. Now, you can't meet the needs of every volunteer in your ministry, but every need you can meet it, right? Make sure they've got a good curriculum. Make sure they've got the supplies they need. Make sure they've got the budget they need. Make sure they have the help they need. There's nothing as discouraging to somebody as being all alone in a room and you don't have any help. You get exhausted. Be a cheerleader to that team, which is my next point. Flood them with appreciation. I know that you appreciate your team, but are you communicating that appreciation to your team? Now, you may communicate them in your head, but here's the thing. Your thoughts have never blessed a single person, right? Your thoughts don't bless anybody. You've got to make sure that you are expressing that appreciation to your team. Send them thank you cards in the mail. Look them in the eye and tell them you love them and you're praying for them and you're thankful for them. Send them a text message. Babysit their kids. Buy them a pizza. I don't know what you have to. You all are creative people, but flood those people with appreciation. It'll help you retain your volunteers. It'll help you with your volunteer strategy. And you need to learn to let go. You need to learn to let go. What do I mean by that? Part of your volunteer strategy means I not only catch people, that's the recruiting part, and I not only coach them, that's the training part, but then I catapult them. I release them and I let them do what I've asked them to do. Now, I understand when you delegate, sometimes you get burnt. We've all gotten burnt before. When someone drops the ball, someone doesn't do what they say they're going to do. But you know what? It happens to the best of us. I get that. But you've got to delegate. You've got to. Now, you don't just delegate to anybody, right? You be careful about that. Remember when Moses went up on Mount Sinai, he left his brother Aaron in charge. Right? Well, that was a mistake, because what happened when Moses got back down off the mountain? Aaron had collected all the golden earrings and necklaces and built a gold staff, right? And they were worshiping that golden staff. You got to be careful who you delegate to. But that's why you coach your team before you catapult them. You coach them before you release them. And then when you release them, you check in on them. You don't just shut the door and walk away and never come back. You check on them. You resource them. You empower them. You say yes more than you say no. And allow them to do their thing. Allow them to do their thing. Now, that's the second question that you need to address. Here it is on the screen. How is my volunteer strategy? I hope that you have one. I hope that you have identified the positions that you need, that you're praying for those people, that you're leading with vision, that you are giving them what they need, that you are flooding them with your love and appreciation, and letting them run with it. Let them run with it. Here's a third question that you need to ask. How am I spending my time? How am I spending my time? Oh, this is so important, Kidmin Academy Excel. How you spend your time, because time management is life management. And when you learn to manage your time, you learn to manage your life. Learn. Now, you may not feel like you were born organized. That's okay. Not everybody was, but you can learn some organizational skills. Every one of us live by our priorities. You do. Every day you live by your priorities. And your priorities dictate how you use your time, what you do on your computer, what you do on your phone, your day-to-day. Now, sometimes your priorities, I understand, are dictated by your supervisor. But a majority of you that are listening right now, you have a good amount of control over your schedule. And you need to hone in on this one right here. Listen carefully. You need to live by your priorities. Every day I set priorities for the day. If you've listened to me teach much, you've heard me talk about my productivity playbook. You can get it at kidsmatter.com. It's a download. My productivity playbook helps you organize your month, your week, your day. Even helps you organize other parts of your life. But every day I complete my daily playbook where I write down what are my priorities for the day. Who are the people I need to connect with today? What can I do to move some projects forward? And by me identifying my priorities, I get more done. People ask me quite a bit, Ryan, how do you get so much done? You're doing so many things, and I am. And I always say there's two things. I understand the value of a team, and I understand the importance of living by priorities. So evaluate how you spend your time. Are you spending your time on wisely? Okay? Are you wasting your time? Now listen, be careful that you don't waste your time. Be careful that you don't waste your time. You can get sucked into Pinterest, to Instagram, to YouTube, to TikTok, to Snapchat. I understand it. You can get sucked into your email. There's all kinds of things. We're all wired different that'll suck our time. Some of you like to play games. Some of you like to go out and golf. Some of you do all these video games on the computer and stuff. You know what can suck your time. I don't have to tell you. Sometimes it's even good things that suck your time, but they keep you from the best things. Okay? Don't let that happen. Ask yourself, how am I spending my time? Now, I want to mention one more time the Ryan Frank printable productivity playbook. If you don't have it, you can download it. Go to kidsmatter.com. Put a Z in there. You guys know that. kidsmatter.com. It's in the leadership category of the store. Let's review so far. So question number 1, how is my walk with the Lord? Number 2, how is my volunteer strategy? Number 3, how am I spending my time? Here's number 4, am I investing in future leaders? Am I investing in future leaders? We need to be investing in the next wave of leaders coming behind us. Andy Stanley, I heard Andy Stanley one time say, what did I hear Andy Stanley say? I drew a blank. He said, your number one job as a leader is leadership development. Your number one job as a leader is leadership development. So, who are the people that you are developing? Who are you investing your life into? If I met with you one-on-one, I said, hey, tell me, who are your guys right now? Who are your girls? Who's the small group of people that you are spending time with? You should always have a handful of people. that you are spending some time with and you are really pouring yourself into. I know you're busy. Maybe it's an intern that's home from college. Maybe it's a high school student that has an interest in ministry like you are. Maybe it's a few of your lead volunteers. Who are you investing your life into? Because listen, you can't do everything yourself. You've got to grow your capacity. And one of the key elements in growing your capacity as a leader is investing in future leaders. It's giving things away. Now, I know that scares some of you, but look at this. Leadership is not always about getting things done right. Andy Stanley said it's about getting things done through others. How much of what you do are you getting done through other people? And how much of it are you holding on to yourself because so maybe it's your OCD or you're a perfectionist or you've been burnt in the past, but I got to make sure I'm doing it right. One of the greatest investments you'll ever make is when you invest some time in others. Who's someone that you can invest in the next few months? Those investments reap a ton of benefits. Not only to the person you are investing in, but they reap benefits for you because you grow your capacity and you grow margin. And now you have time for more. Yeah, I hope that y'all have mentors. And I hope that I am a mentor to you. But you need to be a mentor to someone else. So, are you investing in future leaders? Let's go to number 5. What's my communication strategy? What's my communication strategy? John Maxwell says everyone communicates, but few connect. And I really want you to think about how well am I doing communicating? Now, here's the thing. Pastors and leaders are great at talking. They will pontificate over and over again. I love pastors, but so many pastors, they just love the sound of their own voice, and a lot of leaders love the sound of their own voice, let's be honest. Here's the thing, though. Communicating is not just about becoming a better speaker, it's also about becoming a better listener. Good communicators are good listeners. Yes, I want you to grow your communication skills, whether it is in writing, whether it's on video, whether it's in a small group, in a meeting, whether it's in front of 100 kids or 500 adults. I also want you to grow your listening skills. My grandmother, I remember as a 4 or 5-year-old kid hearing her say several times, Ryan, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you could what? Listen twice as much as you speak, right? Now, one of the greatest areas that we can grow our communication skills, especially today, is digitally. So, what's your online presence like? Are you using Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube to bless other people and help other people and to encourage them and to listen to them? I want you to be the digital mayor in your town. I want you to be blessing so many people. I want you to be encouraging parents and volunteers and the people in your church and community with your posts, that people are like, I know who that person is. I love what they have to say. They are a true blessing. They may not communicate that to you, but they can't wait to read your stuff. They can't wait to watch your videos, to watch your stories, to hear you because of the blessing that you are to them. So let's do a rapid review Excel as we wrap up today. Then I've got a small assignment for you. How is my walk with the Lord? How is it? How's my volunteer strategy? How am I spending my time? Am I investing in future leaders? And what is my communication strategy? We're going to talk quite a bit this month about asking good questions. The better the questions, the better the answers, the better of a leader you're going to be. So here's your mission. Should you choose to accept, what are you doing well in all of these 5 areas? And then How do you need to grow and change in each of these areas? Hey Ryan, what's God talking to you about right now? What's God speaking to you about? You know, one of the great things about the Bible is it describes itself as a living book, a living word. You know, you may have books on your shelf in your office or at home. Maybe your kids have books. Maybe you remember going to high school and seeing all those books that you so dreaded. There's one thing different about the Bible. It's a living book. It's a living word. In other words, God uses the words of that scripture and it comes to life. And it can speak to you exactly where you are right now. One thing that God's teaching me is don't be afraid to make big asks. Don't be afraid to make big asks of people. Sometimes it's when you make that big ask that you are pushed forward into your calling and where God wants you to be. Now, there's an example of this in the Bible, Nehemiah. Nehemiah was the governor of Judah, and he had such a heart for his people, the Israelites, and for the city of Jerusalem. In fact, he heard that the city walls had been destroyed, that the gates had been burnt, and this just messed with him. It tore him up. And he prayed to God, and he said, God, would you please help me find favor with the king? Because God put on his heart that he wanted to go back and rebuild those city walls. Now get this, he wasn't a builder, right? But God put this on his heart to rebuild those city walls. And so he went to the king. The king said, what's wrong with you? I can tell something's up. And the king explained, or Nehemiah explained to the king about this city of Jerusalem and his desire to go back and rebuild the city. And the king said, well, what do you need? And I love this. Nehemiah 2:4 says that before Nehemiah answered the king, he prayed to God. You know, I miss out on this so much. I don't know about you. I miss out on this. I know what I need. I know what I want. I know where I want to go, but I don't stop and pray about it near enough. Here, Nehemiah knew he wanted to go back and build the city walls. He needed the king's blessing, but before he made a request of the king, he stopped and he prayed. And I love that. He sought God's favor. And he said, King, here's what I need. I need to go back and rebuild those city walls. You know what the king said? The king said, fine, go do it. Go do it. Now listen, that in itself, the fact that a king would say that was a miracle. And listen, you know what? When God puts it on your heart to rebuild the hurting walls of somebody in your life or someone that you know, be ready. God will bless. He always will. And the king said, I need your blessing. Can I go? The king said, go. And then Nehemiah made another big ask. He said, I need something else. I need you to write me a letter of recommendation so I can get there without any problems. And the king said, done. And God blessed what he did, and he went and he rebuilt those city walls. But it would not have been possible, this is my point, had Nehemiah not made a big ask. Sometimes it's tempting to sit back and wait for the stars to align before you make that big ask. You know, you look out, you're sitting at the street and you look to the right. You want to make sure there's nothing but green lights before you go. But you know what? That's not what God wants. Sometimes he just wants us to get out of our comfort zone. The lights might never all be at sync in green, right? The stars might never align. But here's something I know. The scripture said, Jesus said this, that I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you've received it and it'll be yours. You can make big asks of God. You can make big asks of others. And here's what I know. When your heart's right and when you want to do big things for the kingdom, God will bless you. He'll bless you. Don't be afraid to make a big ask. There have been times in our ministry where we've needed money and I've made a big ask. I got out of my comfort zone and made a big ask of people and got a yes. There's been times I've wanted to be serve on certain boards, and you know what? I'll make a big ask. I want to learn. Can I serve? No, just a volunteer. I want to serve, please. And making that ask, That doesn't mean you're always going to get a yes. Oh, I've gotten plenty of no's. But you know what? You can get some yeses. Don't be afraid to make the big ask. All right, in the latest and greatest, we've got a lot of great things going on right now. One thing I'm excited about is I'm excited that I'm able to connect with so many of you podcast listeners, so many of you ministry leaders, so many of you marketplace leaders by text. And I just got a new number, so I want you to text me. My number is 765-441-4598. 765-441-4598. And you know, I am putting it, as we go into 2022, I do a lot of email marketing. I do a lot of social media marketing. But I am putting about 90% of my eggs into the texting basket in 2022. Here's what I know. I've got a Facebook group with 26,000 kids pastors, and it's free, so I don't complain. But I post something on Facebook, and they bury it in the algorithms. You would think, as the administrator and one of the champions of this community, that my posts would show up for the people in my community, but they don't, right? Here's what else I know. I've got a big old email address with 40-some thousand leaders. And if I get lucky, 15 or 18% of our subscribers open their emails, right? But I know this, when I send a text message to those of you that I have your phone number, like 97% of you read that text message within 3 minutes. And so I am using text messaging this year, and I am using it to bless and encourage and inspire more than anything else. Yes, I'm going to let you know about new podcasts from time to time, about events that we're doing, book releases and whatnot. But I just want to bless you. So send me a text, 765-441-4598. And just say, hey, Ryan, listen to you on the podcast. I'll text you back. And I'll make sure to start sending you a weekly, not even a weekly, I'm almost a daily, or every other day, every few days. I want to surprise you. I don't want you to get used to it. I'll bless you with some text of encouragement that I promise you will help you and that you'll find encouragement in. Let me share with you a resource that you absolutely must know about. Now, this is something I just discovered at Christmas. It's Andar Leather, A-N-D-A-R. A-N like Nancy, A-N-D like dog, A-R like Robert, A-N-D-A-R, Andar Leather. Beth got me for Christmas a cover for my AirPod Pros. And that cover was made by Andar Leather. And I thought, oh, it's beautiful. And then she got me a new wallet made by Andar Leather. Oh, it's so cool. The pockets. I love this wallet. I love it so much that my iPhone case cracked. I've been using a wood case. It's really cool. I got one like 6 months ago. It cracked. I decided I'll give another chance. Bought another one. It cracked again the other day. So guess what? I bought an Andar phone case and I love it. You know, think about the things that you carry a lot. If you're like me, a guy, a wallet, your phone, they need to feel nice, right? And you're holding them all the time. And this Andar leather, the leather is so smooth. It's soft. I'm gonna tell you, it looks cool. Go check it out. They have cases for your computers, your tablets, your phones, all your devices. They have bags. You ladies are gonna like the bags. They have wristbands or belt bands. What do they call them for your Apple Watch? All kinds of bands and all kinds of great stuff. And I'm not getting paid to promote Andar Leather. I'm just simply telling you, I like it, and I think you might like it. Go check out Andar Leather today. All right, here's your quote of the week as we wrap up episode number 481 of the podcast. It's by Dr. Tony Evans. I love listening to Tony Evans on the radio, a great pastor and preacher. He says, success is not what you have done compared to what others have done. Success is what you have done compared to what you were supposed to do. Ooh, think about that one. Success is not what you have done compared to what others have done. Success is what you have done compared to what you were supposed to do. Please, as we wrap up the podcast, don't fall into the trap of comparing yourself to others. It is a trap. Yes, sometimes grass looks greener on the other side, but it's not always greener. Don't compare yourself to other people on Instagram. Please, don't compare yourself to other people online, to the neighbor next door, to the other pastor down the road, to the guy that has an office like yours on the other side of town. Keep your eyes not focused on them. Keep your eyes focused on Jesus. When you look into the eyes of Jesus, you realize that you are perfect just the way you are. You're not average. You're blessed. And God has a great, great future for you. Hey, what do you think about the podcast today? I hope that it helped you and encouraged you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your attention. Text me and let me know what you thought. 765-441-4598. Subscribe to the podcast. Give it a review. It would mean the world to me. And if we're not connected on social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all those other great places, would love to connect with you. All my social links can be found at ryanfrank.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.